My name is Laura Bennett, and I have been a trauma nurse for 12 years. I have seen things that would make most people unable to sleep at night. Gunshot wounds, car accidents, burns that cover entire bodies. But nothing, and I mean nothing, prepared me for the day that changed everything I thought I knew about my own life. It was a Tuesday afternoon in October, when the military helicopter landed on our rooftop helipad. The sound of the blades cutting through the air made everyone in the emergency department stop what they were doing. We do not get many military cases at our civilian hospital, so when we do, it means something serious has happened. The paramedics rushed in with a stretcher, and on it was a man covered in blood, his tactical vest torn apart, his face barely recognizable under all the dirt and injuries. Dr. Harris immediately began barking orders, calling for blood transfusions, imaging, the whole protocol. But then something happened that made the entire corridor go silent. The wounded soldier, barely conscious, grabbed the doctor's wrist with surprising strength and said in a hoarse voice that cut through all the chaos like a knife, "Laura Bennett. I need Laura Bennett. Do not let anyone else touch me until she is here." Every eye in that emergency room turned to me. My heart stopped. How did this stranger know my name? If this story has hooked you so far, subscribe to the channel now, because what comes next will surprise you even more. To understand what happened that day, I need to take you back 20 years. I grew up in a small coastal town in North Carolina called Wilmington. It was the kind of place where everyone knew everyone, where secrets did not stay secret for long, and where your reputation followed you like a shadow. My parents were hardworking people. My father was a fisherman, and my mother worked at the local diner. We did not have much money, but we had each other, and that was enough. I always knew I wanted to help people. When I was 16, I volunteered at the community clinic, and that is where I discovered my calling. Nursing was not just a job for me, it was a purpose. But my path was not easy. I had to work 2 jobs to pay for nursing school, and there were many nights when I questioned if I would make it. It was during my first year of nursing school that I met him, Marcus Reeves. He was the kind of guy everyone talked about, but no one really knew. He had dropped out of high school, had a reputation for getting into fights, and most people in town had already written him off as a lost cause. But I saw something different in him. Maybe it was because I understood what it felt like to be judged before people even gave you a chance. Thank you for staying with me this far. This shows you feel the same way I felt when I lived all of this. So subscribe and hit the bell, because what comes now changes everything. Marcus and I met at the pier one evening. I was studying for an anatomy exam, and he was sitting alone, staring at the ocean. Most people would have walked past him, but something made me stop. I asked if he was okay, and he looked at me like no one had asked him that question in years. We started talking, and what began as a simple conversation turned into hours of sharing stories, dreams, and fears. He told me about his father, a decorated Marine who had died in combat when Marcus was only 8 years old. He told me about the pressure to live up to a legacy he did not think he could ever achieve. He told me about feeling lost, angry, and invisible. And I told him about my own struggles, about feeling like I had to prove myself every single day, about the fear of failing and letting my family down. Over the next few months, we became unlikely friends. I encouraged him to get his equivalency diploma, and he actually did it. I saw a side of Marcus that no one else saw, a young man with potential, with intelligence, with a heart that had been hardened by loss, but was still capable of caring deeply. He told me once that I was the only person who believed in him, and I remember telling him that sometimes all we need is one person to see us for who we really are. Then one day, he disappeared. No warning, no explanation. I went to his apartment, and it was empty. I asked around town, and no one knew where he had gone. 2 weeks later, I received a letter in the mail. It was from Marcus. Now I want to hear from you. Where are you watching this story from? Write it down in the comments. It is incredible to see people from so many places following stories like this. The letter was short, but it changed everything. Marcus wrote that he had enlisted in the Navy and was going to try out for the SEALs. He said that I had shown him that he could be more than what everyone expected, and he wanted to make his father proud. He thanked me for believing in him when no one else did. But what hurt the most was the last line. I do not know if I will ever see you again, but I will carry your words with me wherever I go. I cried for days. I was angry that he left without saying anything. I was scared that I would never know if he made it, if he was safe, if he even survived the training. But life does not stop for heartbreak. I finished nursing school, graduated with honors, and moved to Virginia to work at a major trauma center. I threw myself into my work, building a reputation as one of the most skilled and dedicated nurses in the department. But working in a hospital is not just about saving lives. It is also about navigating egos, jealousy, and politics. There were nurses who resented me because I was younger and got more recognition from the doctors. There were whispers behind my back, rumors that I was sleeping with attendings to get better shifts, accusations that I was too ambitious, too confident. One nurse, Patricia, made it her mission to undermine me at every opportunity. She would question my decisions in front of patients, report me for minor infractions, and spread lies about my personal life. I learned to keep my head down and let my work speak for itself. But the truth is, those years were lonely. I dated a few people, but nothing serious ever developed. Part of me was still holding on to the memory of a friendship that felt more real than anything I had experienced since. When Marcus said my name in that emergency room, my entire world tilted. I pushed through the crowd of doctors and nurses, my hands trembling, my mind racing. As I approached the stretcher, I looked down at the man lying there, and despite the blood, despite the years, despite everything, I recognized him. Those eyes, that scar above his left eyebrow from a fight he got into defending a kid who was being bullied. It was him. "Marcus," I whispered, my voice breaking. His hand reached for mine, weak but determined. "I told you I would carry your words with me," he said, his voice barely audible. "You saved me once, Laura. I need you to do it again." The room erupted into organized chaos. I pushed aside every emotion threatening to overwhelm me and went into full professional mode. I assessed his injuries, called out orders, worked alongside the trauma team with precision and focus. He had multiple gunshot wounds, internal bleeding, and was going into shock. Every second mattered. As we worked to stabilize him, I could feel the eyes of my colleagues on me. Patricia was there, watching with barely concealed curiosity and suspicion. Dr. Harris kept glancing at me, clearly wondering about the connection between this patient and me, but I did not care. All that mattered was keeping Marcus alive. Hours later, after surgery, after transfusions, after everything we could do had been done, I sat beside his bed in the intensive care unit. He was sedated, his chest rising and falling with the help of machines. I held his hand and finally allowed myself to cry. Over the next few days, as Marcus drifted in and out of consciousness, pieces of his story began to emerge. He had made it through SEAL training, one of the toughest military programs in the world. He had served in some of the most dangerous places on Earth, missions that would never be declassified, operations that saved countless lives, but cost him parts of his soul. When he was awake enough to talk, he told me things that made my heart break. He told me about the friends he had lost, the impossible choices he had to make, the weight of carrying secrets that could never be shared. He told me about the nights when he thought he would not make it, when the darkness felt too heavy, when giving up seemed easier than going on. "Do you know what kept me going?" he asked me one night, his voice hoarse but clear. "It was remembering what you said to me at the pier. You told me that the world was full of people who would tell me what I could not do, but that I had to be the one person who believed in what I could do. Every time I wanted to quit, every time I thought I was not strong enough, I heard your voice. I was stunned." I barely remembered saying those exact words, but he had carried them for 20 years. He pulled something from the small bag of personal items the military had sent with him. It was my letter, the one I had written to him after he left, telling him I was proud of him and that I believed he would do great things. It was worn, folded, and unfolded so many times that the creases were almost transparent. "I read this before every mission," he said. "You have been with me all along, but not everyone at the hospital saw our connection as something beautiful." Within days, the rumors started spreading like wildfire. Patricia led the charge, suggesting to anyone who would listen that my relationship with Marcus was inappropriate, that I was compromising patient care because of personal involvement, that I should be removed from his case. The hospital administration called me into a meeting. They were polite but firm. They explained that while they appreciated my dedication, they were concerned about the appearance of impropriety. They suggested I take some time off, let other nurses handle Marcus's care, maintain professional boundaries. I felt my blood boil. I had worked at this hospital for 8 years, had an impeccable record, had saved countless lives, and now they were questioning my integrity because I had a personal connection to one patient. "With all due respect," I said, keeping my voice steady despite the rage building inside me. "That patient specifically requested me. He trusts me. And right now, trust is part of his treatment. If you remove me from his care, you are not protecting professional boundaries. You are potentially harming his recovery." The meeting ended without a clear resolution, but I could see the doubt in their eyes. Patricia smiled when I walked past her in the hallway, a smile that said she thought she had won, but she did not know me very well. I was not going to let politics and pettiness get in the way of taking care of someone who needed me. Marcus's condition remained critical. He developed a post-surgical infection that was not responding to standard antibiotics. His fever spiked dangerously high, and there were discussions about whether he would make it through the week. On the 7th night, everything came to a head. Marcus's vitals crashed, his blood pressure dropped, his oxygen levels plummeted, and alarms screamed through the intensive care unit. The attending physician, Dr. Monroe, made a decision to use a standard protocol, but I knew Marcus's case was different. I had studied his chart obsessively, had consulted with infectious infectious disease specialists on my own time, and I believed there was a different approach that had a better chance of working. Dr. Monroe, I think we should consider using a combination therapy with a different class of antibiotics, I said urgently. He looked at me with annoyance. Nurse Bennett, I have been practicing medicine for 20 years. I know what I am doing, but I could not stay quiet. With respect, doctor, this patient has a unique medical history. He has been exposed to pathogens in combat zones that we do not typically see. The standard protocol is not working. We need to try something else. The room went silent. Everyone was staring at me. A nurse does not challenge a doctor like that, especially not in front of other staff. It was a career-ending move, and I knew it. But I also knew I was right. Dr. Monroe's face turned red with anger. If you are so confident, Nurse Bennett, then you can take full responsibility for what happens next. But when this fails, it is on you. I did not hesitate. I will take that responsibility. We implemented the treatment I suggested. The next 12 hours were the longest of my life. I stayed by Marcus's side, monitoring every change, every vital sign, praying that I had made the right call. And then, slowly, miraculously, he started to improve. His fever broke. His blood pressure stabilized. His oxygen levels climbed back to normal ranges. Dr. Monroe never apologized, but he did not have to. The results spoke for themselves. As Marcus recovered, he began to open up about things he had kept buried for 2 decades. One evening, as I was checking his vitals, he said something that stopped me cold. Laura, there is something I need to tell you. Something about your father. I felt my stomach drop. My father had died 5 years earlier from a heart attack while out on his fishing boat. It had been sudden, unexpected, and devastating. What about my father? I asked, my voice trembling. Marcus took a deep breath. On one of my missions about 7 years ago, we were in a situation that went bad. We had a local informant who helped us escape, who risked everything to get our team to safety. That informant's information eventually saved dozens of American lives. I never knew his full story until recently, but when I saw your last name, I started digging. He paused, and I could see the weight of what he was about to say. Your father was not just a fisherman, Laura. During the Vietnam War, he served in naval intelligence. He had connections that lasted long after his service ended. When our team needed help in that region, his old contacts came through. Your father was part of the network that saved my life and the lives of my teammates. I could not breathe. My father had never talked about his military service. He had always dismissed it as something from another lifetime, something that did not matter anymore. But it had mattered. It had saved lives. It had saved Marcus. He never told us, I whispered. Marcus nodded. Men like your father do not talk about it. They just do what needs to be done and move on. But I want you to know that his legacy is not just the daughter he raised to save lives. His legacy is also the lives he saved that he never told anyone about. Marcus made a full recovery. It took months of physical therapy, counseling, and support, but he did it. The hospital administration eventually backed down from their investigation into my conduct, especially after Dr. Monroe quietly submitted a report praising my clinical judgment. Patricia found herself reassigned to a different department after other nurses came forward about her pattern of bullying and undermining colleagues. But the biggest change was not in the hospital. It was in me. Marcus and I spent countless hours talking, reconnecting, building something new on the foundation of what we had started 20 years ago. We were not the same people anymore. We had both been through too much, seen too much, lost too much. But maybe that was exactly why we understood each other so completely. 6 months after that chaotic day when the helicopter landed on our roof, Marcus was discharged with full honors from the Navy. He decided to stay in Virginia to start a new chapter. And I decided that maybe it was time to stop running from the parts of my life that mattered most. We did not rush into anything. We took our time, learning who we had become, respecting the scars we both carried. Today, Marcus works with a veteran support organization, helping other soldiers transition back to civilian life. I still work as a trauma nurse, but now I also volunteer at veteran health clinics. We built something neither of us expected, something that started with a conversation on a pier and was rekindled in a hospital emergency room. The lesson I learned from all of this is that the people we touch in life, the words we speak, the belief we offer when no one else will, those things have power beyond what we can ever imagine. Sometimes the life you save is not the one on the stretcher in front of you. Sometimes it is the life you saved years ago with nothing more than faith in someone's potential. And if you stayed with me until this final moment, write the word loyalty to prove you heard the whole story and to show that real loyalty transcends time, distance, and circumstance. What do you think about how this story ended? Would you have made the same choices Laura made? Share your thoughts in the comments. Do not forget to subscribe to the channel and hit the notification bell so you never miss another incredible story. And go ahead and watch the next video, because there are so many more stories that will touch your heart.